because it gives people a method to kill. And I think right now, as it stands, gun control, riding on that argument of culture is way too low. And to increase the safety in the United States, we have one of the lowest safety rates of developed countries in the world, and a lot of them is attributed to guns or firearms. You see countries in Europe, they're very developed. Of course, they have crime, but it's not as readily available as it is in the U.S. because they don't have a sufficient way to carry out that crime.
I think that America, with that, I agree with the majority of the Americans that say that we need less gun control because that's stated in the Second Amendment of the Constitution. They just agree with the Constitution. After all, if you're going to be a bad guy and use a weapon, you're going to break the law in the first place to get that weapon, to break another law. You're not going to say, oh, just because I want to get a gun, I'm not going to break this law to break that law. It's all across the board. You're a bad guy. You're going to, if you want to kill, you're going to be able to kill. It's just like saying if I want to regulate guns, that you got to regulate knife sizes and other things. People die from stabbings all the time too. It's no different. Exact same.
I don't want to prevent people from getting or being able to get their firearms. I'm just saying we need a greater control. It's, like you said, if someone wants to do something, they want to commit a crime, they're gonna break the law anyways. But those types of people usually don't have that much of a credible stance as they are right now, and that's what gun control is trying to aim at, to not allow those types of people to get guns. I don't want to prevent the purchase or the consumption of firearms at all. I just want to make sure there's a greater screening process. It's harder to get, and people with maybe ulterior motives wouldn't be able to get to those guns potentially. Is what I'm aiming for.
Yeah, I agree with that. We need to prevent that, but also we have to. If you're following the law, you should be allowed to bear arms, like you said. Also, what I say is, like for gun shows, you don't need a permit or you don't need to have a background check to get the weapon. I believe you need to do that. However, that doesn't mean across the board you need to restrict gun access because it's right there in the Second Amendment. It should be available to all Americans, especially those who follow the law in the first place. And if they follow the law in the first place, they're not going to break the law. It's this trend. Ulterior motives, of course. We have to be careful with that and track that. We already have background checks on any other sort of gun sales like going on. So besides a gun show, you have to have a background check in most states. It's an ATF.
Again, I don't want to say I want to prevent people from getting guns. We seem to keep going towards that direction. The problem right now is it's loosely enforced. Of course, there's a background check, there's all that, but you see a ton of case studies, and I'm not saying case studies is the trend, but to have truly safe laws, we must get rid of those case studies. You have people getting into, you have people going into stores and getting guns without permits, or that happens sometimes because gun sellers want to make profits, and if they can hide that well, it's going to happen, and we want to make that impossible. Also, we're only making it stricter so all people can have access to firearms.
Okay, I agree with that. Okay, because we agree on that issue.
Okay. This is for whoever would like to go first. Tax reductions enable citizens to have more disposable income and will raise their standard of living. Do you think the taxes should be reduced or increased?
I think middle class taxes. One of my platforms is to cut middle class taxes. I think that was a Democratic platform in the previous years, but with the addition of Obamacare, those taxes went up again, and I think that's not what we shouldn't be promoting a certain cause to get taxes up. I think what's important for the economy is to put money back into the general population of the United States, the middle class. And spending can only get the economy back on track.
See, I agree with lowering taxes, but not just for the middle class. It should be across the board because who forms jobs again? It's corporations and small business. So if we give more money for them to expand, of course that'll create more jobs in the long run because there'll be more jobs available due to expansion, and they'll say like you build another store because you have the readily available money from being less taxed. So why would you want to take away money from the people that are from the businesses that are creating jobs in the first place. Just because you're making a profit doesn't mean you're evil. It means that you worked hard and that you deserve that profit.
You can't increase or you can't get the economy back on track by lowering the government spending power. For many issues surrounding how to jumpstart the economy, we need to set aside funds, or we need to have programs. We need to have spending programs by the government to get the money on to American hands. We can't just lower taxes all across the board and lower government spending power. If we weaken the potent of the American check, how do you suppose to fix the issues we have now?
Well, how do we weaken the American strength of the dollar? All I'm saying is that if we lower prices or lower taxes overall abroad, it'll create more jobs. And just because you want to spend more money, I mean, do you not see what the number of the national debt, almost $18 trillion? Obviously, we're spending too much. Why not cut that? And then if we give more money in the hands of businesses, people, not just the middle class, other people spend money, not besides the middle class. I know you're going to say they spend the most, but why don't we give it all a chance? Because if you're being taxed more and you're not in the middle class, then how are you going to supposedly get out of poverty? If you're given more money in the first place, you're able to get a home, and then if there's a job made from those tax cuts, you get a better job than what you have, or even if you don't have a job, you get the job that was created from those tax cuts, and then eventually get into the middle class, which is most people's goals.
I want to make sure a great portion of the American population in the lower income regions don't pay taxes. They're not inclined to pay a certain amount. Instead, they get refunded back from the government. So taxing isn't an issue for lower income families, like you just mentioned.
Well, you still have to pay for Social Security. I know it's decreased, but you're still paying taxes. Why not lower that as much as possible, and then it'll allow for people to get back into the middle class. And then just because you're people not in the middle class, you might be above it, doesn't mean you're just going to hold on to that money forever and never use it. You're going to eventually invest, which stimulates the economy, instead of giving out money and spending programs that are wasteful. Because we have $18 trillion in debt, obviously we can't spend more. That doesn't make any sense. Our credit rating dropped 2 years ago. We can't allow that to drop even more.
Well, I mean, I think a bulk of the American spending doesn't come from us spending on financial programs anyway. So with different amendments to the government process, we would be able to decrease that deficit. So.
But you just stated that you want to increase spending programs to stimulate the economy.
But
Wouldn't
I'm
that
saying
cost
there's a need. There's sometimes a need, and we can't see for that need to come about, and we don't have the power to do it.
How are you going to get that spending money if you're already losing money? That doesn't make any sense. If you want to decrease taxes, increase government spending, and also reduce the national debt, how does that make sense?
Just because we have a national debt of $18 trillion doesn't mean the American bank has a negative $18 trillion balance. We have spending money. We still have money to spend. That's the reason why the ceiling goes up every time we need to
and don't you
raise
see a
it.
problem with that? What will eventually happen, because we're easing, like Jonathan has a question, quantitative easing, we're just printing dollars to lower the value of the dollar and give more money to the banks. They do have a net drop, that's why we're giving those banks that money in the first place.
But, I mean, can you clear up your point?
I was saying that we're decreasing the value of the dollar, which will create America less.
Finish.
You can go.
Alright.
Okay, well, first, quantitative easing has more to do with allowing banks to ease their toxic assets so they can do a lot more loans, not with really the federal receipt. And I mean, when you said our national credit rating went down, it didn't.
Went from a double A down to a single A, I'm pretty sure.
Well, no, we've paid back on time.
We have paid back?
Yeah, that's why the.
Okay, well, it went down,
thing
and that's
is-
just the
okay.
result of
So,
what happened.
Okay, so the last question would be, income disparity in the United States is the highest that it's been in the years leading up to the Great Depression, and then in some of the years throughout the Great Depression. So how will you work to resolve the issue of income disparity in the United States?
like I said before, I think we need to decrease taxes. This will give people more money immediately instead of waiting for tax returns given back. That waits a whole year in most cases. And if we decrease taxes immediately, people will have more money to spend, and then it'll give more money to the businesses that people are spending towards. Just like it just makes sense that if you have more money because you're not getting it taken away from a wasteful government, and then it gives you more money on hand to either spend now or save later to spend. You're not going to hold on to that money. You're eventually going to spend it. It may be in retirement, but that money's still there. You're going to spend it eventually. Just because you give people, I don't know, remember when Bush gave out $600 after we had the surplus of taxes or surplus of income? People, he just gave out money. And there's a problem with that because people were not going to spend that. But if you just increase or decrease taxes abroad, not just the middle class, it'll give more investing power to companies. It'll give people more money to spend, and overall increase the economy without waste because it's in the hands of the consumer, not the government.
If you want to lower the income disparity, shouldn't you be working on economic or financial distribution programs instead of lowering taxes? Because by lowering taxes, you have the top end of the income bracket paying less, and we have less to give to the lower income bracket.
Problem with that is that that's almost socialism, where you want to equal out pay across the board. Why would I want to do that when people with less money already, like, why would you, I know you're going to give them money, but the people that supply those jobs, who are they? They're the people that are in the high upper middle class or above the middle class. So to take their money away, prevent investing, will just make people on the lower end more reliable on the government because they'll be like, okay, I need money and there's no jobs available.
I mean, even the middle class, the bracket for the middle class has gone down in recent years because average pay has decreased, and we have such a big income disparity, and people in the middle class aren't making enough to make amends. So shouldn't it make more sense to have people in the top income bracket, which make so much, they have almost like not much to do with their money, to give back to people in the lower income brackets? This is a country. This isn't just a group of people. We're a country. We need to work together to create a cohesive American society. We can't just have people making their money and just completely overshadow everyone else. We need to work together, and sometimes you need to give up a couple of rights to get that, and it's in all government philosophy. You have to work together. It's to want protection, to want unity. Sometimes you can't just have everything free. Otherwise, we wouldn't be a country. We'd be an economic entity.
Okay, 30 seconds.
Well, people are rational, so if you have the chance to make more money because you have more money on hand to invest, won't you want to do that? You're not going to just hold on to money and you're just going to bundle it up. If you have more money, you're going to want to make more money on top of that, which is exactly what the upper middle class will be doing. The middle class is going to, if you decrease taxes, they'll want to spend more money because they'll have more money on hand instead of just redistributing wealth, which is also Obamacare. That's pretty much what it does. But if you redistribute wealth, it just creates waste. People, if you're giving out money from the government and you're not going to want to work to get out of poverty. I mean, you could see it now with people wanting just to stay on the government welfare program. If you don't have a job, you're just going to stay on that. That's why we increased the length, and it increased to 6 months after just another 6 months, because people aren't willing to go out and find jobs. Besides, where do you think those people that got all that money in the first place started off as? They're probably lower middle class.
Where
Okay.
do you suppose that?
Well, yeah, I mean, statistically, most people in the middle upper class were born in the middle upper class.
They tend to stay.
Yeah, but
Well, they're not going to decrease out of it, but there's still people. There's still if you lower taxes, it gives an opportunity overall for people to get out of that lower.
Yeah,
class.
okay. Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us in the third period presidential debate.
Is that all?
Yeah.